Together the dragons glided into the landing area. Radians was in the front and his companions side by side behind him. After they shifted, Prince Grayson could see the King of Illyrian and his queen, walking out through the gates of the castle to personally greet them. "King Liam is really outdoing himself," said Radion to Prince Grayson. "I wonder if he greeted all the other princes in the same manner," exclaimed Grayson. "I doubt it. None of the other princes have an ancient silver dragon like you," said Radion proudly. Prince Grayson laughed. "Get over yourself right now," he scolded his dragon. Radion scoffed. "You know it's true." Prince Grayson felt conspicuously underdressed as he mentally prepared himself to greet the king and queen. They were dressed in stately attire. The king wore a black suit that had a purple velvet cape lined in silver draped around his shoulders. It was clasped to his suit by a gold chain studded with purple amethyst. The queen wore a silver gown trimmed in dark purple amethyst that matched the cape worn by the king. "See?" said Radion. "The queen wore silver in our honor." Prince Grayson ignored him as the soldiers that were carrying the flags approached him. They bowed. The leader said, "Follow me, your highness." As they followed the soldiers smartly marching in front of them, Prince Grayson observed a small crowd gathering along the road. They stood stoically staring at the men from Peroria. "I wonder why these people are standing out here," commented Grayson to Radion. "It's got to be nearly 7 o'clock and the sun will be setting soon." "They were probably hoping to get a look at a two-headed dragon," joked Radion. "Not funny," said Prince Grayson. But actually, as word had gotten out that a sliver dragon had been seen flying to the castle, many of the citizens wanted a glimpse of the dreaded dragon from Peroria. They wanted to see for themselves how horrible-looking the men were, and if their appearance matched the stories they had heard. Instead, they were greeted by the handsome men that the dragons shifted into. Prince Grayson, the tallest of all three, had flowing long brown hair with a handsome face and a muscular body. His uncle Romid was nearly the same height. He had hair basically the same color, but it was trimmed short, as was his beard that was etched with a small amount of gray. One could tell when looking, he was obviously the oldest of them, but he still appeared to have a lot of vitality. Last but not least was Eliaster. He had wavy locks of blonde hair that nearly matched the length of Prince Grayson. His eyes were filled with mischievousness and laughter lines surrounded his mouth. He was shorter than the other two men by almost half a foot and was stockier, but it was all muscle. The king and queen had stopped shortly past the castle gates, waiting for the prince and his friends to approach them. Prince Grayson bowed deeply to the king first and then the queen when he reached where they were standing. Romid and Eliaster dropped to a knee behind him. "Welcome to Illyrian," Prince Grayson said King Liam. Taking Queen Briette's hand, he said, "Let me introduce my wife, Queen Briette." "We are so glad you could make it," said Queen Briette, her voice soft and musical. She was a very beautiful woman. "If her daughter is as beautiful as she is, I may have to reconsider this maid of ours you think you felt," joked Grayson to Radion. "Not funny," snapped Radion. "I am honored to be here," Prince Grayson said to the king and queen, ignoring Radion. "Let me introduce my companions, Romid and Eliaster," he said as he motioned towards them. "Rise," the king directed Romid and Eliaster with a smile. He turned and headed back towards the castle. "Please walk with me," he commanded Prince Grayson. He stepped up beside the king. The queen joined them on the other side while Grayson's friends followed. "How was the flight from Peroria?" King Liam asked casually. "It was good," replied Prince Grayson. The king nodded. "That is excellent to hear. How is your father doing?" he asked. "King Aeon is well, thank you," smiled Grayson. "And how is your brother?" he asked. "Unfortunately, he was feeling under the weather, shortly before we needed to depart," answered Prince Grayson. "I must say I was surprised when I heard that it was a silver dragon arriving. According to the reports I had received, King Aeon was only sending one of you, and I was informed that it would be your brother. I thought maybe your father had sent both of his sons. My brother Khayyam had been looking forward to the trip, but, to his dismay, was advised by the physicians to stay home," said Prince Grayson partially truthfully. "I am sorry to hear that," said King Liam. "I hope he gets to feeling better quickly. I hope that it isn't anything too serious, but I imagine his dragon is still in training and is still learning how to use his healing powers." There was no way Prince Grayson was going to fill King Liam in about his brother's issues. His dragon, Leon, was quite capable of dealing with any physical issues that Khayyam dealt with. He just wasn't mature enough to help him deal with his mental issues yet. King Liam noticed Prince Grayson's lack of response, but chose to ignore it. Enough of all these questions. "We are here for the festivities of my daughter's ball, and hopefully we will find her a mate," he said with a sly grin and a wink. Prince Grayson gulped. "Hopefully she doesn't take a liking to me," he groaned to Rodion. "I was just joking earlier about the mate thing. I want my true mate. I don't want to be the reason another war breaks out between our countries." "Hopefully," he replied, echoing Grayson. "Your Majesty," Prince Grayson said with diplomacy, "if your daughter is half as beautiful as your queen, I am sure she will have no problem finding a mate." King Liam smiled broadly at the compliment of his wife's beauty. The gates stood open waiting for the king and the others. As they walked through the gates, there was a young servant girl standing there, with her head bowed waiting for them. She bowed before the king. "This will be your servant while you are staying here," said King Liam. "She will show you to your quarters." "Dinner has already been served," said Queen Briette. "But I am sure you are famished. Send the servant to the kitchen and they will prepare anything you desire. Feel free to stroll in the courtyard and the gardens if you wish," added King Liam. "A few other guests have already arrived today. The rest should be here in the morning. I will see you then." The king and queen took their leave and walked away. "I wonder who has already shown up," said Eliaster. "You can find out after we get our rooms," said Romid. "I am curious myself, but I am also ready to find a bed after we eat." Prince Grayson looked at the servant girl standing waiting for instructions. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Bella, my lord," she said as she curtsied. "Pretty name for a pretty girl," smiled Eliaster. Both Grayson and Romid looked at him and shook their heads as Bella stood blushing. "What?" he said, shrugging his shoulders. "Don't be hitting on the servants here in Ilarion. We aren't in Peoria, and we don't need that kind of trouble," said Romid. "Bella," said Prince Grayson, "could you show us to our rooms?" Bella nodded as she curtsied again. He chuckled. "Please don't curtsy every time I address you. You're going to give me whiplash." Bella's eyes widened. "Yes, my lord. This way, please." The men followed her, quietly taking in the lavish decorations adorning the hall. Portraits of former kings and a few queens hung on the walls, along with tapestries that were woven with pictures of men and dragons that seemed to tell some historical tale of old. About halfway down the long hallway, Bella stopped, and with a key unlocked a door. Before pushing it open, she stood with the key out in her hand, waiting for Prince Grayson to take it from her. "Am I supposed to keep this?" he asked as he took the key. "Yes, my lord," said Bella as she curtsied again. Rising, she pushed the door open. "Enough already," laughed Eliaster. "You are going to give me whiplash too." Bella blushed and looked embarrassed. She had never been treated so informally by royalty and wasn't quite sure how to handle it. Grayson could see her discomfort and it puzzled him. In Pyroria, servants were treated as people and with respect. He couldn't imagine the servants in his castle bowing and scraping every time he spoke to them. "It'll be all right," he said comfortingly. "If this is your custom, then by all means act accordingly in public. But when it's just us, you can relax a bit." "Yes, my lord," she mumbled as she started to drop into another curtsy. Prince Grayson shook his head and raised his hand for her to stop. "Could you have some hot water brought to the room so we could bathe?" he asked. "And also if you could have some of whatever is left over from supper warmed and brought to our room. We don't need a lavish meal, just something nourishing." Bella nodded, still looking uncomfortable, and hurried back down the hallway to the kitchen. "Wow!" Eliaster laughed as they walked into the room. He poked his head out of the door to get one last look at Bella walking quickly down the hallway. "Not too shabby, but a little too shy for me." "Every servant is going to be a little too shy for you here in Ilarion, because every one of them is off limits to you, young man," said Romid. Eliaster turned and looked at Grayson. "Don't look at me like that," Grayson said. "Don't make me regret I chose you over Tiny." "As if," he snorted. "He would have driven you crazy." "Yeah," laughed Romid, "but he wouldn't have to worry about him pulling shenanigans." Eliaster lifted his hands and took a step back. "I promise I will be on my best behavior," he said. Prince Grayson sat down on a chair. "You'd better be," he warned as he looked around the room. "Do your job as my security and check out our quarters. But I want to take a look around and find who's already here, and who is still expected to be here," protested Eliaster. "Afterward," said Grayson. "Bringing friends isn't always the best option when on a diplomatic trip," said Romid, as Eliaster began opening the doors and checking out the other rooms. "I heard that!" yelled Eliaster from an adjacent room that held a large bed and all the amenities one could wish for. "What about family?" Romid shook his head and bit his tongue. He had a lot of work to do with Eliaster, if he was going to be Prince Grayson's chief advisor. He's a quick study, said Grayson, correctly reading the look on his uncle's face. Besides, you'll be around for a long time. After a bit, Eliaster walked back into the room. What did you find? Asked Grayson. There are 4 bedrooms, 2 rooms with a bathtub in them and 1 privy chamber. Also, he continued, at the end of the hallway that leads to the bedrooms, there is 1 window that should be large enough to escape from if we have to leave in a hurry. Otherwise, there are no other windows in the rooms. That could be worrisome, noted Romid. We will make do, said Grayson. You can go now if you like. Don't stay out too late, but if you do, don't wake me up. Can I take the key? Asked Eliaster. No, Romid and Grayson said together. Eliaster shrugged and walked out the door. You look pensive, Romid said when Eliaster left. King Liam has already hinted to me about his daughter finding a mate, and I think he meant me, sighed Prince Grayson. I am uncomfortable about the whole situation. Bella knocked on the door. Come in, Romid called out. She entered with servants carrying water for baths and food. When they were gone, Grayson and Romid quickly cleaned up before eating. After eating, Grayson chose the bedroom with the door closest to the large window in the hall. He changed into the clean sleeping clothes provided for him in the room. He fell asleep uneasily, but he didn't hear Eliaster knock and Romid letting him in when he finally returned to the quarters. Radion stayed alert while Grayson slept. He wasn't comfortable either. The blatant mistrust of Illyrians that Prince Grayson held in his heart was on his mind. He too hoped that his rejection of the princess's dragon would not start a war.